Hi and welcome to this episode of Someone You Should Meet. Today my guests are going to be chatting with me about a subject that's very close to my heart, maternal nerve injury. 12 years ago, almost to the day, I went into hospital to have my first child. I left with a beautiful baby girl, but I was also left with permanent nerve damage and drop foot, which I still have to live with to this very day. So let me introduce my guests today. So we're joined by Paula Wroble and
Hello.
Martha. Hi, Paula. And Martha Turanti. Hi, Martha.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Claire.
No problem, Martha. Thanks, ladies, for being on the show. I really, really appreciate it. So just to explain who you guys are, Paula, you're actually the founder of an online or now Facebook support group supporting other mums that have also gone through this. And Martha, you're also the founder of a website which again supports mums who have had nerve injury due to childbirth. But Paula, can I first of all start with you, Paula, and can you tell me about your story?
Sure. When I had my son 16 years ago, and when I was done with labor, I had trouble walking and my legs were still numb. They didn't really know what was going on at all. To sum it up, the doctors at the hospital didn't really know anything. They tried to get me up from the bed. I fell straight to the floor. So that was kind of how my story went at the hospital, but also how most of the other women in the support groups story went as well. I had left there terrified, not knowing what was going on. Getting the more details of the science behind it later, but basically I left there. They kept me an extra day. Still didn't really had no answers. Thought I was paralyzed. So searched the internet. Couldn't find anything at all. So I started posting on mom boards. Started on Yahoo groups, posting. Really didn't find anybody. After a couple months, I got a message from like one girl, and then it started slowly happening. People finding the group, suffering with the damage because we could not find anything about the topic at all. So then we kind of moved to Facebook, where we started our Facebook group, and now we have over, I think, 1,200 members. And so just a way for the moms to kind of talk to other women that are going through this and figuring out what's going on. And it's a very long story, but trying to shorten it up for you. But yeah, so that's where we're at now. That's how the support group started.
So Paula, take me back to that day. So you went into the hospital. I mean, were you in good health prior to going into the hospital to have your son?
Yes, no major issues during labor. I think I pushed for maybe, just about 45 minutes. So it wasn't even anything crazy. I think I was in labor 12 hours, natural, epidural whole thing. And after, the epidural was supposed to wear off, the nurse tried to get me up and I'm like, my legs are still kind of numb and I can't really move them. I could move them only certain ways. I could move them up, but not out. And the nurse was like, I saw this look of horror on her face. Like, what is going on? What happened here? And naturally, everyone at the hospital kind of panicked. Like I said earlier, when they tried to get me up, I fell straight to the floor. That's when everyone kind of panic set in. They brought in a neurologist, which was actually zero help at the time, which a lot of these women have also experienced. He just kind of brushed it off. My OBGYN kind of brushed it off, said, oh, I just think it's a little nerve damage. You'll probably be fine in a couple of days. And she actually only said that. I remember getting wheeled out of the hospital in a wheelchair by like a little volunteer, an old volunteer man. And the whole time I was there, no one said anything about it. I think they were more concerned about, they thought, potentially would have been damage from the epidural, because that's what a lot of the doctors, when they're unfamiliar with it, they kind of go straight to that, which, so I had the anesthesiologist come in there and he was telling me, I did 12 epidurals today and this didn't happen to anyone. I don't know what's going on here. And, that type of thing. They started physical therapy at the hospital. I walked a little bit, falling down a lot. Basically, they sent me home with no answers. They sent me home with, I was able to get like a walker. I mean, I couldn't even get in my house because I couldn't do stairs. And we had 2 stories, so I couldn't even go to the second story, nonetheless hold my child, you know? So, so that happened at the hospital. I left there not knowing what was going on. Fortunately for me, 2 weeks later, there was 2 weeks of terror, basically. I didn't have any answers. They had physical therapists coming to my house. She was just like, wasn't familiar with anything. She was just like, well, we got to get you used to the new norm. And I was like, wait, the new norm? I'm like, I am not paralyzed. Like, I went in there completely, you know, healthy. Like, this has got to be something that's fixable, but she terrified me. So after she left and I broke down, had a massive meltdown, we didn't even have her come back because I was like, this is not what I need. So we kind of just researched ourselves. I remember my mom at the time was calling our neurologist trying to help, you know, get some answers. And he had told my mom that he was pretty sure it was just in my head, that I was imagining it, which is also another thing a lot of the women in the group have dealt with, which is just crazy to me because who would want to, but so luckily for me, one of my friends, unfortunately, at a young age got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, but she had an amazing physiologist from this Chicago Institute. And I was like, I'm going to try there. And I'm not sure how it even worked out, but I got in with her 2 weeks later. So it was 2 weeks of not knowing what was going on. I was having no improvements. I was using a walker at home. 2 weeks later, I got in and I went to this amazing woman, and for some bizarre reason, she actually did a study on this very rare thing like years ago, and she knew exactly what was wrong. So thank God for her. And we kind of went from there. So.
Wow, listening to your story, Paula, it's very, very similar to mine, other than I didn't have an epidural, but exactly the same thing. I went in healthy. I used stirrups to deliver my child, which is what they think caused the nerve damage. I flopped down on the bed. I wasn't able to walk. I wasn't able to carry my child. It really was terrifying. I mean, what feelings, what emotions were going through your head when you realized that you didn't have use of your, you know, lower body?
Yeah, it was beyond scary because not only, you know, was I a first-time mom, thinking I couldn't walk, and it was a big reality hit. You know, initially you're kind of like, oh, this will be okay, you know, and then you get to the house and I couldn't, you know, even get in my house because I have a little stoop, you know, 2 stairs to get in the house, and I had to like kind of like get help getting in the house, you know, and then we're living downstairs and everything. It was horrifying. Because it was just the unknown too. And I'm a big like Googler, and I'm like, oh, I can find this, you know, and I went and tried to find everything online. I couldn't find anything. I'm just like, I really just thought that this was we kind of thought most people think it's probably from the epidural because that would seem to make sense, you know, for someone that doesn't really know anything about that. You know, when I was at home, I even had, actually, this was really strange. The anesthesiologist called my house. You can tell he was scared that he was like going to get a lawsuit or something. He called my house and was like, just seeing how I was. You can tell he really didn't care, just kind of, you know, more concerned. But it was terrifying. It was terrifying. I was, you know, depressed, and then you have this baby. You're like, how am I going to take care of it? And like, there's just so many things going on through your mind, especially being a first-time mother. And I can't imagine if it was a second-time mother or third, then you're like, how am I going to care for these other, you know, children as well? So, it was horrible. I was anxiety ridden, you know. I mean, we lived downstairs for, you know, a month, whatever, until I can at least crawl up the stairs. And honestly, I didn't even start seeing a little bit of recovery until about 10 to 12 weeks. So even though at 2 weeks I knew nothing, at 2 weeks I did find that doctor that told me, you're going to be fine. It might take 6 months, it might take 3 months, it might take a year. But she did tell me, so I had that, you know, to go off of, but not knowing anything else and finding anybody else and all these women, you know, I was fortunate to find her. But lots of people, you know, don't find any doctors that really know what is going on even throughout the whole process. So I'm thankful for that. It was certainly was the most terrifying time ever, to say the least.
Yeah, I hear you. And actually, I'm yet to meet a doctor who has been able to help me. So it's extremely frustrating. But, you know, in those early days, in those early weeks, Paula, What physical and emotional impact did your injury have on your day-to-day life, especially being a new mother and looking after your baby?
Yeah.
Oh, I would say it was, you know, depression at that point. So I was so anxious. I was worried that, you know, I wasn't going to be able to take care if there was any emergencies in the house. Once I was able to get up the stairs a little bit, you know, I would just wake up all night because I was like, oh, what if there's a fire or something? You know, I can't run. I can't do anything. And if I did get up too fast, I would fall. A lot of my friends at the time were having babies. So, you know, you wanted to share that time with them, and it's supposed to be this fun time. And it was just really, you know, scary and depressing to me. You know, my friends would want to come over and help me, and I just didn't want to see them. And then they'd bring their babies over and I'd see them with their babies, kind of, you know, taking care of them, changing them. And I would have to go, you know, at home. At the time, my husband was able to work from home, so he helped me, and my mom was around, so she came over every day. I remember the doctor was like, try and do everything yourself, and, you know, to make me feel normal. So they would bring me the baby so I could change it on the couch, or we would use the stroller in the house. But yeah, you know, having that on top of all the hormones and crazy things that go on with your body after having a baby anyway, it was a major impact, probably still a little bit lasting till this day, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I mean, the stuff that you're telling me right now, Paula, is just like a flashback to my situation 12 years ago. How frustrating was it to not be able to do the most simple of tasks, like carry your baby, walk up and down the stairs holding your baby?
Right. It was super frustrating because that's all the stuff you look forward to. So basically I was just kind of like sitting there all day waiting for people to bring me the baby, you know, and the craziest part was I couldn't carry the baby and, you know, walk around the house, you know, do anything. And because you were terrified that your knees would just, or your quad muscles would just give out and just drop the baby, which would be a nightmare. You know, I couldn't go on walks. I couldn't do anything. And it was just a really, really difficult time. You know, my family was really helpful to me. I mean, I was pretty much stuck in the house. And not only that, it was, you know, it was just, you didn't want to deal with anybody, because I would go out, and when I had my doctor's appointments and I had the walker, I'd have to take a walker. And, you know, and I remember I was pulling up and the security guard said to me, you know, oh, the handicap door is over here. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and I was like, it's crazy, you know, and people are looking at you with this baby and thinking, what happened to her? You know, it was wild. It was super frustrating. I felt like, you know, I really got gypped to that first part of motherhood. Honestly, a lot of the women too, you know, I was dying to just make a baby bottle or get up in the middle of the night, but instead it was a big process, everything, you know, bring me the baby, bring me the diaper, bring me this, you know, that. So super frustrating, especially because, you know, I mean, we didn't know what was going on. We had no idea. And I was just going off the word of the doctor, you know, that I found after 2 weeks. So yeah.
Yeah, I know there's a photo the very first time I took my daughter out in her pram, and I had my, my walker with me, and I was just so embarrassed, and that wasn't how it was supposed to be. I was extremely fit. I'm an ex-ballet dancer. I do Pilates every day, and I came out of the hospital injured through no fault of my own. I mean, how have you dealt with that frustration over the years? Because I know for me, Paula, I can still get really mad and sometimes very teary at the fact that I've been left for 12 years practically on my own, because no one along the way has known how to deal with my injury.
Yes, it's, I can imagine. Now, see, you know, for most parts, for me, I started improving at 3 months, and then, you know, it took about 6 to 9 months to be fully, you know, recovered. So obviously that helps, you know, being fully recovered pretty much. I still have little remnants, you know, little weakness here or there. But for me, finding this or starting this group and finding all the women with all the problems and giving them a outlet to talk to, that has been helpful for me. You know, even like yourself, I wonder if there's, you know, a woman in your area that may have had luck with someone, you know, maybe we could hook you two up, or, you know, because so for me, I just kind of put my thoughts and frustration into that group at that time, you know, and being able to tell women that most of the time it's recoverable at even at, you know, at some point, some 100%, some 50%, you know. But yeah, so at that time I was just kind of doing research of my own and trying to find people and connect people and things like that to help others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, how important is the support of other moms who are in a similar situation when you're going through something that's very unknown and very unnerving?
Yeah, it's, you know, for me, I found one girl that's still in the group, and even just finding her, I was like, oh my gosh, oh my God, you know, that would make a world of difference, because you can't, until they made their website, Micah Month and everything like that, you couldn't really find anything. You know, I was looking through medical journals. Like, I remember paying for, you know, medical publications because I saw, you know, something like it. And then I pay for it and get it and print it out and read it. And I still didn't know, you know, I mean, you were just grasping for straws to try and find anything relatable. So to find a group of women like this would be, oh, amazing. You know, I like I said, back in the day, I think they would start out with like 2 of us, or I think maybe 8 initially, and just I would have taken just having the one, because it was just, so it's even better than, I mean, even, you know, finding your doctor. I feel like just having that support and people to talk to and ask questions, you know, because pretty much a lot of our stories are a lot the same. So
yeah, I know it's comforting when I read through, because I'm also a member of your Facebook group, and I read through some of the posts and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what happened to me. And, you know, because I don't know anyone personally who's experienced anything like that, it makes me feel less of a, sounds a silly thing to say, but less of a freak almost. I feel like I, you know, there are people in this world that can relate to me. Martha, can I come to you? Because I really want to know about kind of how you got involved with this too.
And for any moms listening, our website is it's www.nervedamagefromchildbirth.com, and it will connect you to all of our resources. So it'll connect you to our Wonderful Moms Facebook group. It will connect you to our Micah Facebook page, and it's full of resources. It's absolutely extraordinary. And my story is, I'm actually a dance teacher, and I teach Pilates, and I'm trained in doing rehabilitative Pilates. And so in 2016, my daughter Molly, I mean, the power coming from Paula and the emotions, and I get emotional because it was my daughter that was impacted. So it's very difficult. And to see, it's not only the physical damage, it's the emotional damage that I see so clearly in Paula and our moms in the group. And so my daughter, and it's very frustrating because most nerve injury, maternal nerve damage, is preventable. And we're doing a lot about that. We're partnering with the medical community to change medical protocols. We'll talk about that more later. But my daughter, you know, I was there. She was in Washington State near Seattle. Her husband's in the military, and happy day. And my daughter was predisposed, which we didn't know. She had a large baby. She had sciatic issues, which if there was any screening for nerve injury, there would have been a red flag for this. And my daughter's labor was very prolonged. And I was with her the whole time. And in the final stage of labor, they put her in a frog leg position, which is unacceptable. And that's where her injury happened. And I remember to this day, I was right there on the leg that was injured, and her saying, Mom, you know, this is the final stages. You're watching the monitor. They said, Molly, you can have this baby in a certain time. You're going to have a C-section. I'm just like there with her. And her husband was there too, of course. And I can still see her leg and say, Mom, my leg feels funny. And so our beautiful Noah, her son, was born at 1:30 in the morning. And one thing I try to do also for the nerve injury moms in the group is kind of make it the load a little lighter. So I call my grandson a precious nib with nerve injury, because the mom said my nerve injury baby, and it felt so heavy to me. And I'm very creative. I'm a dance teacher. So I came up with precious nibs, which we use, and the moms love it. And it makes the load a little bit lighter. But I'll never forget, the next day I get a call, you know, I had a few hours sleep, and she's like, Mom, my daughter, I don't want you to worry. And she said, but I can't walk. I can't move my leg. And it was just horrible. We in our advocacy would come alongside the medical community. We're not blaming them at all. We're wanting them to partner with us and educate us. But I will never forget as an adult, and like you both said, this was, you know, you're a new mom, like Paula said, it's overwhelming enough. You know, Molly been in labor for a couple of days to have both neurologists and anesthesiologists standing there scratching their heads. And so I whipped out my smartphone and I started Googling, and I found a post in the baby center. And I said, Molly, you've got to get to PT. And unfortunately, in the medical community, which is why our moms have had such a lack of care, is they're covering for potential lawsuit. I could care less about suing the doctor. I wanted to be sure my daughter was okay. I was absolutely appalled that no one asked my daughter. Like Paula said, I couldn't even carry my baby. My daughter couldn't walk unassisted. We didn't know what was wrong with her. You know, you both had foot drops, so you could see it. Yeah. No one asked her. Her husband was in the military. She was 3,000 miles from any family. Molly, what are your resources? Who's there to help you? Do you live on one floor? Molly lived up 2 flights to an apartment. I stayed for 3 weeks. I wish I'd stayed longer. And it was a nightmare. Finding out what to do, finding resources. Molly's physical therapy was delayed. So many of these tests, like Paula, and you both know, like for the moms going through this and then going to a neurologist is scary. Then something called an EMG sounds so scary. Well, that's why, and it's not. Like when the moms are explained what it is and they're given the information and they know what to expect, it just lifts such a big load. And so it was a very dark season, and we got through it. My daughter had her second child last year. It's a lot of trauma for the moms preparing for the second child. They reach out in our group for a lot because there's been so much damage. I actually took last year off work because my daughter lives in South Korea, and I knew if she had repeat damage with her daughter, I would need to stay. So so it really, nerve injury is not just about the mom. It's about the entire family, impacts the entire family. And so even for me, I didn't even return to work last year so I could be available for my daughter, because I knew if there were issues and she was in South Korea, I needed to be that support to her. And fortunately, she had an incredible team. One of the biggest questions that asked in the nerve injury group is about the second child, having a second baby. So there's an entire protocol that we have for them. My daughter's team followed it to a T. And my daughter had such joy. We were in South Korea last year, a little around this time, for my daughter to go outside and walk. And like you said, you felt robbed of the normal, you know, with Noah, and go out and do fun things and see the cherry blossoms and celebrate that. So MICA stands for Maternal Nerve Injury from Childbirth Awareness. And actually there's incredible moms in this group. And one of our moms, Reagan Smutney, had a serious injury. She launched the website in 2017. We launched MICA in 2018. So the whole month of May, which is right now, is our advocacy month. And we do ribbon campaign. We're in my ribbon. Paula and I both have our advocacy t-shirts on. This year, our theme is standing up for those who can't. So Paula's very modest, but the group now has 1,600 members from 38 different countries. So we've learned I have an incredible team who supports me. We probably put it that live all over the country. And my daughter does ads while we're asleep in South Korea. So Molly does a bunch of ads. I mean, it's amazing. And of course, we're not doctors, we're not counselors, but we've come up with when I say simplified, very direct resources for the moms. The moms are in trauma. So we keep it simple, and the moms are from all over the world. So we don't know what their health insurance is. We don't know where they are, but these are guidelines. And then the group saved my daughter. And like Paula said, there's an emotional trauma with this, that Paula's 16 years out, and we see this, and you know, you've been there. And so the emotional support. So in the group, like Paula said, I do a lot of the science because this is what I do, and I can be more specific. That being said, I do refer the moms to medical care. But at the same time, the group is amazing. It's so warm. It's so supported. Like Paula said, and you know, Claire, the sense that this is a shared journey, and that sense that you're not alone. I mean, I saw an entire team who we thought we could depend on and help my daughter not do that. And so the moms, I mean, Paula's story is the story I hear over and over and over, and I lived it. And we felt very strongly wanted to turn this for good, which we have. It's just been incredible. It's been extraordinary.
Martha, why is it, and I still am incredulous about this to this day, why is it that the medical community, the people who are looking after these women who are in a very, very vulnerable state in these hospitals, why are they not aware of nerve injury? Because in my experience, the doctors, the nursing staff that dealt with me, they were shocked. They couldn't wait for me to leave the hospital because they did not know what to do with me. Why is that?
Yeah. I think that we now have an RN on our team. We were praying for a medical person to come on our MICA team, and Jennifer Webb, RN, sustained nerve injury, had nerve damage, and now she's out. Her work has been accepted into local and national medical conferences. So she's written, along with us as the team, a new medical protocol to protect moms. She is a research associate who is now, they're getting ready to launch a survey in our group, and they're doing actual research on this. I think that we don't really know yet. I think that they're pretending it doesn't happen. For me, coming from a physical therapy, occupational therapy background, the most obvious things that a nurse, the fact that no one even asked my daughter who was there to help her. Like Paula said, one of the biggest things we do with the mom is we help to direct them resources, like practical things when you go home. We were saying you're a fall risk, you can't be carrying the baby. You need to be set up on one level, and I don't have an answer, and we've just chosen to not be bitter about it and to partner with the medical community. We really, Jennifer Webb, who's our RN, we are endlessly sharing things with the medical community. We've had no response, and I decided several years ago, I am taking the message to the moms. So wherever moms are, I am taking the message to them, and our doors are opening. Jennifer, the doors are opening with her as part of our team. So I don't have an answer. I think research is going to start to answer some of those questions. I don't know how you two feel about that. It's hard. It's very hard.
How important is it that a woman advocates for herself? Because I know in my case, I was so easily dismissed. I had to do the research myself. I had to ask for the help. So if a woman is unfortunate enough to be in a situation like your daughter, like Paula, like myself, how important is it that she speaks up and she doesn't kind of get deterred when it comes to being brushed aside and told that there's nothing wrong with her?
Paula, did you want to answer, or did you want me to answer?
Oh, sure. Oh, I can. That's fine. I mean, back then, I was the only advocate, I'd say, besides my family, at that point. It's just nothing. So you just have to really count on yourself. Now, now it's a little easier. I don't know if it's the community, medical community doctors don't know because it's rare. I think Martha knows the statistics. Is it 1 in 100 or something like that? So I think it's rare, but a funny thing I found actually, which I thought was very strange when this happened to me, I had gotten a handwritten letter in the mail from my mom's friend that she said, she didn't email or anything, obviously, but she said, so she wrote me a letter in the mail and said this happened to her, And she still didn't know what it was. And I mean, the woman was about 70 years old and said she was bedridden for like, months, and they didn't know what happened. And at that point, there was no epidural or anything. So, it was like the same situation. I mean, this has been going on forever, obviously. I think they just kind of write it off as a rarity. So maybe that's why there's not all the information out there. But yeah, at this point, I mean, even still at this point with our information, you still really have to be an advocate for yourself. But it just gets frustrating because as much as I explained it to my doctor, and then I went back for my checkups, and I had one of the other doctors in practices, and I walk in with my walker, and he was just like, wow, but like, that was it. I had my checkup, and then I moved on to a different practice. And even the other practice where I had my daughter when I had my C-section, I had a C-section the second time. Even then, they were very, they were concerned about it, and answered my questions, and we did kind of things the way I wanted to do it. But still, like, beyond that, I feel like if they had someone else that this happened to, they wouldn't know what to do. I mean, I don't know. It's very frustrating.
You know what though, Martha, you just mentioned, I know that it's rare, but 1 in 100, that actually doesn't seem so rare to me, that the medical profession should be ignorant or unaware of this. What sort of injuries do you hear about with regards to your forum? The mums that are members of your group, what are their injuries in the main, like the most common types of nerve injury?
Right. Women sustain all kinds of nerve injuries. They can have nerve injuries of the upper torso also. Our area, and we keep very focused with our group, it's lower extremity, like what you both experienced. You're waking up, you can't walk. So that would be sciatic, femoral, or peroneal nerve damage. So for example, if a mom had sciatic nerve damage, she would most likely have sciatic knee issues prenatally, and she wakes up and she has difficulty bearing weight. With sciatic nerve damage, she would feel discomfort and burning almost the whole way down the leg. With femoral nerve damage, or femoral nerve is the new protocol that we're advocating for is legs are never pulled up further than 90 degrees. Okay, so when those knees are brought up, it pinches, the femoral nerve is right up in that crease in the hip. So with femoral nerve damage, it's when we've seen some of our major injuries. The moms are getting up after having their children. You don't always know your epidural hasn't worn off. And this is where I wonder where the nurses are, because they're supposed to be there assisting them, and they go right down. So your femoral nerve helps to stabilize the knee, and the moms know they have that if the knee just buckles. So they're a huge fall risk. And some of the protocol going forward, if the medical protocol that's being advocated for, if those moms are identified with that, there's actual signs put on the door, there's a they have advantage that they are at fall risk. So we're all over these moms and moms group that you're a fall risk, because like you said, Claire, who goes in to have a baby when they're 25 and is going shopping at Walgreens for a walker and a potty support thing? It's horrible. Peroneal nerve damage is what I think you both had also. Yeah. And you could actually have femoral and peroneal. Yeah. And Molly had peroneal, so her foot, I'll never forget, looked like, I thought she'd had a stroke. I always talk with my hands, I'm a dancer, but her, foot looked like this. She was numb from the knee down. The peroneal nerve is the lower part of the sciatic nerve, and sciatic nerve goes down the back of the leg, then it comes out to the right of the knee and goes down and ends right by the big toe. So the peroneal nerve is important for innervating those muscles that bring your big toe up so you can walk. They're also a fall risk. And the number one thing with the moms always want to know a lot of whys. And that's really important as part of the healing, but I'm just like, get to PT, get to PT, get to PT. And what you said, the number one lesson, and again, when the moms write their testimonies, and we have wonderful blogs in our website, they're saying learning to be your own best advocate. So every day I'm in the group in the morning and night, every day along with my team, and a lot of support from the other moms. Print it out. Share it with your family. I mean, it's overwhelming to come home and you have a brand new baby and you're adjusting and now you're dealing with this. have your mom move in. Paula just did a beautiful post about her mom who was there for her. I was there for my daughter. And like Molly said, the mama bear kicks in, and it's very overwhelming. It's your first child. You're dealing with a lot. So this is all about the family, and having a big part of what we do with my staff, with my volunteers, we do internal training related to maternal mental health. I partnered in Richmond with certain organizations that are supportive of maternal mental health. May is also Maternal Mental Health Month. And we take maternal mental health very seriously, and there's very specific red flags that my team is aware of. We see with the moms in the group, and we address immediately. And like Paula said, even Claire, you can have the depression earlier. Postpartum depression peaks at 4 months. So I see frequently the moms, it's like right before that 3-month mark, before they see a lot of improvement, they start to be very fearful. And Paula will nod, she knows. And there's a curve there. They start to get better. But that's also a marker separate from the injury. Postpartum depression peaks at 4 months. So now I know what those flags are. This wonderful group I work with in Richmond, I've done community outreach, and I just feel the bottom of my heart that every mom matters. Like every mom matters. If one person had gotten to either of you and you'd had a ounce of information or a medical provider, your outcomes would have been very different. And that's really that's what drives me. And you can see that passion in Paula and also in you. So
yeah, I mean, like you just said, if I'd have had this kind of resource available to me in those early days, it would have made the whole world of difference. And Martha, what's the best thing to do for a mum who has suffered some sort of nerve damage, and what should their treatment look like? What do they need to be getting on top of, ASAP?
Right, that's a great question. And with our advocacy, this is why we do this. We do our advocacy. We have our newly rebranded website, and we actually have a t-shirt shop in it called a Zazzle shop, where we're selling advocacy t-shirts and some mama bling, and that little bit that monies we make goes towards search engine optimization. So you two are sitting in the hospital and I'm sitting there with my daughter, and I could have Googled nerve damage and our website comes up. So we're finding that moms are finding this immediately, okay? So then when the moms then are directed into our group, I'm finding a lot of times they go right to the group, and we do a welcome, and we encourage them to read our website that has every resource they need. But I find, and Paula, you probably agree, they're in a lot of trauma. So we just hug them when they come in. And the moms all gather around, and I found that I keep it really simple. I try to use verbiage that is like Paula said, you're terrified. And I literally do, I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's all I give them for now. So the first thing that needs to happen, if they've had an epidural, they need to have an MRI, okay? So they need to rule out nerve injury. Most people think it's from the epidural. It's not, it's positioning. But they need to be sure that that's ruled out. And also, moms, you both know pregnancy, labor and delivery is really rough on the spine. So even if you didn't have an epidural, sometimes there's some issues that come up with your spine that can result in some outcomes like nerve injury. So it's best to have that done while you're in the hospital. Ideally, you have a PT come see you immediately. These are protocols we're hoping for. And you're evaluated right away. But those things aren't happening yet. The next thing we're looking at is prevention of falls. So I tell the moms, be sure you are not getting out of bed on a lot of support. And then we're recommending that the moms, our new protocol, we want them seen by a PT. We want an occupational therapist to evaluate them, give them guidelines, just like you said, Claire, like who's here to support you? Who's going to help with the baby? I used to, with my daughter, rotate sleeping in bed with her every other night with her husband, and I got up and helped with Noah. I mean, you know that. And then with the moms, once they're home, I give them basic things. I say, have all your family members read this. Get your PT going right away. Use your primary care doctor. They're more available than than your OB. And we tell them practical things, and this is where the moms group's amazing. Practical things like setting yourself up on the first floor. And and Paula knows moms always have all these ingenious things, like you have a walker and a fanny pack and all these fun things. But practical things like you need to be on one level. You have femoral nerve damage, that knee can go out unexpectedly. Things the moms hate to hear, you cannot be carrying your baby, which is heartbreaking for them. But this is about safety. These are practical things you need. You need all the help you can. Call your mom, call your friends, and obviously getting your PT going, and them having to really stand up and fight and be their own best advocate. And that's why, that's our theme this year, standing up for those who can't, meaning we're going to get out there and we're going to spread the word. We're going to pave the path. So these moms that are coming home broken and injured are going to have much better outcomes. And that's really where we're coming from. Paula, do you have anything to add to that? But that's the practical.
Yeah. I was actually just going to ask you, Paula, kind of about your, long-term impacts. I mean, how has that injury impacted your life even to this day? Because I know my injury still impacts my life on a daily basis.
Yeah. Right. I was one of the fortunate ones that, I had no improvement at 3 months. By 6 months, I was maybe 75% better. And then I would say I'm probably, like 90, 95% completely recovered. So for me, it hasn't been, so much of a physical thing. I had the femoral and peroneal, and it was in both legs. So I foot drop in both legs or both feet. And, femoral, one was worse than the other. So, I was thankfully able to recover. I still have a little bit residual as far as like if I'm doing like a lot of, like a high intensity, any type of physical, high intensity workout or whatever. But for me, it's just more of the mental thing, even till this day, even though I really haven't any residual effects as far as like falling or anything like that, my legs feel different. So I'm always just like a little paranoid that they're going to give out, even though they haven't given out in about probably 15 years, so for me, it's more of a mental game, but really I just try and help these women now that need it. And the first thing I just tell them is like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Cause I remember my doctor, that was the first thing she said to me after she asked me a handful of questions, like, can you move this? Can you move that? Can you do this, but not that? Okay. You're not paralyzed. And I was like, oh, thank you. Celebrated afterwards. But yeah, so kind of just put all my focus up, into the group and reassuring these ladies that hopefully, with time that they'll be okay. It's just a matter of time. Unfortunately, that's what I always tell them too. It's a major waiting game, unfortunately, whether to see how it's going to go, which time is the biggest factor.
Paula, what memories or experiences, particularly of those early days, still traumatize you? Because I know I have a dream sometimes where I'm falling, and that's because I fall in real life sometimes. And I literally will find myself, I'm falling to sleep, and then I like shock myself awake because in my dream I've just fallen, and then I realize I'm in bed, I'm okay. And I just wondered if you still had some trauma associated with your experience.
Yeah, with things like that, I have strange dreams too, that I can't walk, or I'm always, I'm always telling my husband, it's like, if anything ever happens, remember I have that nerve damage, and don't let him put me in any strange position if I'm having surgery or whatnot, and things like that. So I'm a little paranoid till this day.
So that's another really important point, Paula, which Martha, I was going to ask you about. So let's now talk about like second, third or subsequent babies after a nerve damage. How important is a birth plan? Because with my second daughter, I didn't have any repeat damage, but I told the nursing staff as the second I arrived in to deliver my second baby that I was not to be put in stirrups at any cost, because the stirrups, my neurologist said, were responsible for my injury. Again, you mentioned the position of the legs, the pressure going through the knee joints, etc. So how important is a birth plan?
Do you want to speak, Paula, or you want me to speak?
Go ahead.
It's probably The second question in the group is about having a second child. And we're actually in our advocacy. We're doing printable PDFs that are archived in the group. We're putting an album so moms can find them quickly, obviously in our website and on Facebook. But the moms need, like Paula said, a lot of reassurance. I find also, even though I post resources and I'm really want the moms to read first, I'm finding they need this personal. So I say prayer, and I'm a person of strong faith, and God certainly put us through the storm to serve others. I feel, there's no doubt about it. And I patiently respond to this as personally as I can. And so there's a lot of fear. Nerve injury is birth trauma. So there's a huge amount of fear with number 2. Yesterday I was responding to a mom that had, we speak our own language, so bilateral femoral, which is the worst. And she's in her 7th month and starting to feel discomfort. So in that area, so I encourage them, go to physical therapy. I am an advocate for finding a doctor who will listen to you. And that's extremely important and validate what you went through. The minimization that happens with the moms is very, very damaging to their mental health. It's so hard for them to recover from. And that's happened throughout our group. That's why the group is so powerful. And then going in, we had a nerve injury mom who she actually did a birth plan and had it laminated. Mm-hmm. And so now I give a very simple, straightforward protocol to follow that. Go over the birth plan with the team. Be sure once you go in, the labor and delivery teams, when they change shifts, they have the protocol. Be sure you're moved every 10 to 15 minutes. You are, for our nerve injury moms, they can deliver actually with their legs straight. A lot of those birth positions are to benefit the medical team. It has nothing to do with a good, safe delivery. So those horrible hyperflexion positions, and so the moms can actually deliver. They can actually go in and never have any flexion at the hip or the knee, and they can deliver with straight legs. I think I never had a doula with my daughter. I have one and had a great delivery. It's such a blessing. But I'm meeting doulas and learning more about labor and delivery. I think if you could afford it, to have a doula there, but if you can't do it, don't worry about it. Educate whoever's going to be in there with you, your husband, your mom, so they can be an advocate for you. My daughter doesn't remember, but she had a reaction to the epidural and her legs swelled. So the team needs to be constantly monitoring, how's your leg feeling? Do you feel tingly? Is there any swelling? We recommend that most of the injuries are with first-time moms, although we've had, all different kinds of injuries happen. Wait till the baby has descended until you start to push. And so we're seeing incredible outcomes with those moms. If you had an epidural and had a lousy outcome, there's many, many other ways to manage pain that you can discuss with your doctor. And recently, the moms that we've been working with, and it's a lot of emotional support, there was mom posted 2 days ago, they're literally doing the majority of their labor at home as long as possible. They're getting in the hospital and having them in 2 hours with no drugs. So it's a lot to do with the mental. It's really important. Nerve injury is birth trauma. So when the moms come into the group, some of the moms do fine, but some, we name that, we tell them what it is. We actively encourage them to go to counseling. There's a wonderful international support group called Postpartum Support International that can direct moms to resources anywhere in the world. They can call, they can text, but we give it a name, because when this is minimized and moms are told, and Paula's seen these stories a million times, a highly athletic mom that ran marathons is laying there and she can't move, and the neurologist is telling her it's in her head. Well, that's going to cause major long-term issues. So we're very, very aware, especially when you're in trauma, those words stick. You know, Paula, you can see with Paula, there's still so much there, and it's so many years later, and still with my daughter. So with number 2, frequently the moms do need to go back to counseling afterwards. It's a lot of emotion you get through, but they have so much joy. You know, Molly, my daughter's daughter, Ellie, flipped at the last minute and went breech. We're all dancers, so what do I say? And so Molly had to have an emergency C-section, poor Molly. But she said, she posted in the group, I don't know if you remember, Paula, she said, amen and hallelujah. If I could get up and do a dance, I would right now, you know. So, and Molly had an incredible team. And I tell also anyone around it, be sure when your wife is getting up, be sure, I don't trust the medical community as much anymore. Be sure you have your spouse there. They walk you to the bathroom. You don't, you know, a lot of things. And sometimes the moms will have some residual stuff afterwards. I mean, let's face it, being pregnant for 9 months, it's a lot, and having a baby. So go back to PT. There's nothing wrong with that. And lifelong fitness. Like Paula said, lifelong fitness. You've got to commit to fitness for life. You really do. So. And
there's nothing better than Pilates, is there? I mean, I started Pilates. I'm an ex-ballet dancer. I started Pilates when I was pregnant with my first child, almost 13 years ago now. And I've done it every day since. But so you mentioned epidural. The words come up quite a few times. And I know a lot of mums, you know, when the pain's getting too much, they will ask for an epidural or accept an epidural. How much of a role does epidural play in a lot of the cases that you see?
Paula, do you want to answer it, or do you want me to answer?
No, you can go ahead.
We don't, you know, Claire, it's a great question. It comes up a tremendous amount. We now will have research starting. The survey will be launching in our group. That is one of the questions being asked. We'll have concrete evidence as to that. So I honestly cannot quantify it. The moms, I thought with Molly, something happened with the epidural. It's what the moms think immediately. Once they have an MRI and evaluate there's no damage there, we know it has to do with positioning, that they were left in a position for too long, or they were predisposed for nerve injury. They should have had modifications. One thing, I mean, this is going back, my daughter's 24 years old, but when I had Molly, the trend was not so much using stirrups, and I don't remember being left in any birth position at all. I was constantly being attended to. So I'm wondering, you know, I hear stories of moms left. I know Molly's happened. She was in those horrible frog legs for 45 minutes. That did the damage. But moms left for hours in lithotomy or frog, or, so I don't know if there's less numbers with nursing staff. We don't know enough, and it's much better to go, you know, it's much better to go with the facts. So we'll hopefully a year from now, when we have this conversation, we'll have more specifics. It's a great question. Yeah.
How is Molly, your daughter, by the way? How's she doing today?
She's great. Everyone always asks that. She's great. She lives in South Korea, so she would have been on, but it's the middle of the night. And she's a huge part of our team. She does all the ads at night because it's 13 hours ahead. And her nib is 4, Noah. He's very active. And her daughter now, as we say, no repeat damage, Ellie is a little over 1, and they will be back in the States probably in August or September. And so Molly is physically fine. Her husband, everyone they hate it in the group because Paula sees me, he's like, throw away your flip-flops. I was like, I'm teaching my dance students, get rid of your flip-flops. But you have to wear really good shoes, and her husband's terrific. And he reinforces that. Molly certainly had challenges more with the mental health perspective of this. You know, if any mom goes into labor and delivery that has any predisposition to postpartum depression, birth trauma will accelerate that. So that's also very important for the family to know. And then definitely going through those hurdles with a second is very challenging. And she's met those hurdles. And if she was here right now, she would just say, I dug in. I had that determination that I was going to be better and I was going to find answers. And Molly was like so many. I mean, when she had her nerve injury, I live in Virginia and she was in Washington State, and like a lot of military wives, not a lot of resources. So it's really hard on a lot of levels. And like Paula said, that sense of the moms feeling alone, and that's what the group's everything, you know. I mean, the group saved my daughter, and that's why I'm so committed to this. And you know, so many of these moms, it was the same story, like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. You can walk, you can get up. And just the minimization is so damaging emotionally. So like Paula said, and you've seen in the group, Claire, the moms are amazing. And they just like jump in and give them a big hug. And they're like, of course. And, you know, and just support them and reinforce it. And to me, that's everything for healing. We've seen these same stories. There was even a mom I'll never forget from Bhutan. Am I saying it right? The country near India with all the high mountains, and she's standing there saying, I'm having a really hard time getting around. And I'm seeing where she's from with these huge peaks. And it was just, you know, it's just been extraordinary. I'm so grateful for Paula for having that courage. And Paula and I've never met. It's so great to see her. And, you know, and my whole team, we're from South Korea to California to Missouri to Georgia to me, and Paula in the Midwest, and everybody just walks arm in arm along with 1,600 women. We have 1,600 women in the group now from 38 different countries. It's extraordinary.
It's interesting that so many people across the world are impacted with nerve injury in childbirth. Interestingly enough, Molly she had her first baby in the US, did she? And her second baby over in South Korea, is that right?
Right, that's correct.
Yeah, were there any differences? I mean, for example, were they more prepared in South Korea for this type of, you know, labor and the potential risk because she'd already had a nerve injury? Or, you know, was there any difference at all?
Molly had Ellie. Ellie was due in early April last year, and Ellie came a little bit early. And so I got there a little bit after, but Molly actually delivered in a military hospital in Seoul, which was comparable to being in downtown. Imagine driving into downtown New York City. That's what it was like. So she's at a military hospital, and they were incredible. And when we were FaceTiming, I could see the charge nurse that was with her the majority of the time, and she was really no nonsense. And with Molly, Molly and I laugh. I wish she could be here, and thanks for asking about her. And she's like, Mom, if it's going to happen to me, it's going to happen to me. But Molly actually was induced with both of her children, which started the perfect storm with Noah. She had something called cholestasis, which is another, I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's when the liver quits producing bile correctly, and the only way you know you have it is you get super, super itchy. And so that's why Molly had to go in and get induced with Noah, and then with Ellie, the same thing came on. So, and there's a whole organization that raises awareness for that has stories just like ours. So it's all a journey. You know, you learn by going through. It's been an incredible journey. So.
Yeah, it's interesting, that condition you just mentioned. My sister-in-law suffered with that. She had to be induced too. But Paula, I want to ask you about shoes. Martha mentioned shoes earlier. And yeah, I mean, like flip-flops are literally like my worst enemy. I just can't wear them, otherwise I will trip up. And how do you go about like finding some like nice fashionable shoes? Because I'm struggling.
You know what? That is a good question, because I think Martha is probably better to ask, because I am not good with the shoes. I walk barefoot a lot, which is probably a big no-no, right, Martha?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I'm not good. I mean, I can scour the internet and shop. I'll try some shopping for you if you'd like, Claire.
Okay, so Martha, what do we need to be looking for in a shoe? If we've had, particularly, you know, if we've got drop foot, that type of thing going on, what does the shoe need to do in order to be able to support us, but we'd also kind of like it to look pretty too?
Yeah, the nerve injury moms who are all young and, like you said, want to feel normal and pretty, and like throw away your flip-flops and like, whoa. And one of the first things I tell the moms when they get home is put on, if you're able to, put on a good pair of shoes. So I like them to go to like Famous Footwear and get a buy one, get one free, buy a good pair of sneakers to wear in the house and another pair to wear outside that lace up and have good arch support, or to give you that good support in your arch and also the top of the foot, and also not something you're going to slide in. And that's forever, which they really aren't happy with, but that's forever.
Yeah, I know. I feel more comfortable in kind of like boots that are like enclosed, so they've got my ankles in there. But I definitely wouldn't want to do like stilettos, for example, or anything without any support. I don't know. How are you with heels, Paula?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I could, you know, if I have like to go to a wedding or something like that, you know, I'll put them on and suffer a bit, but I haven't had too much shoe issue other than the heels, but I work from home and everything, so I don't need to wear them that often anyway. But yeah, when I'm going out, it's pretty much flat shoes or a slight, you know, platform little wedge thing if you want to get real fancy. But yeah, that's about it. I'm like a Converse type girl, which I don't even know if those are good either, but
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I can do wedges. Wedges seem to be quite supportive, but I find kind of like boots, like ankle boots, or higher boots, or as in like boots that come kind of up your leg, are the best for me. Martha, what has changed over the years regarding this subject, both in the medical community and also kind of general awareness among mothers?
I think for me, it was really hard at first because when we started our advocacy, I thought the medical world would embrace us, and instead we were ignored. So I have a background in arts administration. So I said, well, I'm going to take the message to the people. I'm used to doing lots of lobbying for the arts and money for the arts. And you know, I used my faith and prayed that the Lord would bring the right people to us at the right time. So what's really changed with us is the fact we now have a medical team member that went through this, and she's presenting at national conferences. My goal is this would be in every medical textbook. It would be available there. Awareness, like Paula said, now we have, since 2017, we have this incredible website that our goal is a mom sitting there in that room or a family member, and there's resources, and you know, right away they can start doing exercises in their room, start getting their PT going. They know, they like you said, Claire, you had no idea what was going on. They have that information, and getting that information immediately helps them so much with their mental health and moving forward. And so just now, I mean, we started 2 years ago. We have our ribbon campaign. I make these ribbons, and we partner with another advocacy group called Unhindered Steps, and they mail them all over the world. And then we do our virtual ribbon campaign where you put our MICA graphics on your Facebook page. And we always see the beginning of each month, just the spike in the group just starts to go north, and it's incredible. And my goal is I want to see the group at 0. But I know with the increase in group size that it means we're finding moms. Paula, I think, and I didn't pull out my numbers before this, but I think when we started the advocacy, we've almost doubled the group, the size of the group. So that's been huge in terms of the amount of moms that we're reaching. And then we have 2 Facebook groups. We have MICA group. We have another group called Unhindered Steps. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, we're on LinkedIn now, just anywhere the moms are in terms of reaching them. You know, that's what we're going to do. So we've seen that shift in terms of numbers. We've seen this shift with, I think in the group, really bringing, like Paula was saying, the maternal mental health thing, the moms were suffering, and really giving that a name and directing resources, becoming much better at directing resources to the moms that are very actionable for them, and now having Jennifer on the medical team and presenting, us being accepted and presenting in these conferences is unbelievable. It's conferences with nurses and labor and delivery, midwives, et cetera. It's huge. It means we're being accepted on a medical level. And then the survey we're going out soon, everything's gotten a little slowed down with COVID, but that will be specific research that we'll have, and that will be published and presented in medical journals. So that's huge. It's just huge.
How is COVID-19 impacting the mums that are currently going through all of this right now?
Paula, you want to answer that?
Sure. That's a good question. I don't know, Martha, I haven't noticed too many of the women speaking about the whole COVID thing, because honestly, to me, I was thinking, I mean, if this was my time, it's almost no difference, I mean, because at that point I was stuck in the house. I didn't go anywhere, except absolutely necessary. So I don't know, Martha, have you seen anything? Because I haven't really noticed women talking about this whole thing. I just feel like if anything, it's extra isolating, But
yeah, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, sorry to jump in there, Martha. I was just thinking, particularly with the you mentioned the isolation, Paula, but if, for example, my mum helped me, you helped your daughter Martha, your mum helped you, Paula. If you can't see certain people because, everyone's in lockdown, I'm just wondering whether maybe the isolation is being felt like kind of tenfold among nerve injury mums, just because they can't physically kind of get help when they need it in the early stages. Help with the babies, that type of thing.
Because so many of our moms, when they first come in, they're in trauma, and even the moms going through this that are dealing with anxiety and anxiety and depression, you layer COVID on top, it's a lot. And we know they're suffering. I'm in a local maternal mental health support group it's all counselors. So I see what's going on. I'm very careful with my words in the group and what I bring into the group and what I don't. And I kind of waited to see the moms bring it forward. And really the only conversations happen, like, for example, moms who felt like they couldn't go to PT because of COVID. And so we just clarify that. We know, no, this is essential. I had one mom recently say that the physical therapist her doctor referred her to was closed. Poor thing. So sometimes the moms just need a little nudge because you're exhausted. You just had a baby. So they just need another nudge. Well, hey, if they're closed because of COVID, just, I tend to be low key about it, even though I get really upset with the medical community at times. And so I tend to just be gentle and, well, just contact your doctor or look online with your insurance. And it's really important you get going as soon as possible. And the moms have had a little bit of misunderstandings with COVID that they couldn't go in for PT. And they've actually, that is essential. They can go in if they had concerns. Actually, with some of the telemedicine, that's been a benefit to them. With almost all of the moms, Claire, and the moms don't know this because you don't know you're going to go through this. Almost every insurance plan will cover physical therapy coming to you. So we're constantly advising moms, like, on things like that. No, just ask. They can come to your home, We advise the mom on handicap parking passes, all kinds of things. Little things that you never imagined. You're 24 years old and you can't walk, All those little things that make a huge difference. So I haven't seen just a few ripples like that. It's the same. I haven't seen too much of it. Really. Mm-hmm.
Paula, how much of asking for help is about pride? I'm just wondering, Martha mentioned there, applying for a handicap parking permit. That would never have occurred to me. And even if it had have occurred to me, I was 27 and a former, ballet dancer. I don't think I would have even asked for help. Right. So how much does pride perhaps hinder women's chances of kind of recovery?
That's a good question. I think, for me, it was so severe with both legs, with the femoral nerve, and both feet with the foot drop, that it was a necessity for me. You know what I mean? It wasn't even for me really even having to ask, which I'm sure we all have people that would just offer it no matter what. So, the pride thing it was more frustration for me than anything, it's just my mom would come over every day. My husband worked from home. So it wasn't even a question at the time, but some of the women that might not have had it so severe, it's just frustrating because you can't, I wouldn't even say pride. I would just say, it's frustrating because you couldn't do what you wanted to do, and how you thought, as you said, Claire, how you thought it was going to be. Like you feel like, you know, your first time mom, it got just stolen from you. But, you know, and then in hindsight, though, I think a lot of the women realized, okay, well, we were able to spend time with the baby, and at least the baby was healthy. I would take that over, you know, having issues with the baby. You know, but you can't really see those things until you come out on the other side of it, or even years down the road. So, so for me, it wasn't so much a matter of pride, it was just necessity. But I'd imagine that would be an issue for women that, you know, want to do things more themselves, but I really didn't have the option for myself at that time.
Yeah, I hear you. Tell me about your nib baby, who's now a strapping 16-year-old. What does he think to you? What does he think to your advocacy work with regards to nerve injury in childbirth?
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, do I need to make an appearance?" I'm like, I call him a mascot. Oh, I get a mascot. Yeah, you know, I don't even think they understand like the intensity of the situation. You know, oh, you couldn't walk. Oh, you know, at kids that age. But we'll show them pictures and stuff, and there's always my equipment around in the background and everything like that. I don't think they quite grasp it. I don't know if any of the kids really grasp it. You know what I mean? So maybe their parents, or that'll happen. But he's always just like, sorry, Mom.
Paula, how do you like approach the subject with him? Because I know, like my eldest, in fact, both my girls know that, you know, sometimes when we can't do certain things because of my foot, and they've obviously asked me about my foot, and I've told them, you know, and I've said obviously it wasn't, you know, my eldest's fault in any way, shape or form. But, you know, how do you kind of explain that to them without somehow making them feel that they were actually partly to blame?
Right. You know, since when I had the issues where I couldn't do things, that would be more from when he, you know, when he was little, you know, since fortunately I've recovered for the most part. So he doesn't really remember those instances. You know, now it's just talking about it, and just kind of, he, you know, he's asked me what causes it, and I just kind of explain, you know, it's rare. And for me, what they told me was that I'm very petite. That could be one thing, and that, you know, positioning and whatnot. So just kind of tell them that, you know, not like he has much guilt at this point. You know, 16-year-olds are thinking of their own life, right? But yeah, he's okay with it. I don't think he understands the intensity of it at this point either, though, you know.
Okay. Martha, can I just ask you, you mentioned about kind of, you know, how far things have come or not. But what else would you like to see? What else would you like to see happen with regards to particularly the medical community and this issue?
I would really like to see the medical community turn to us and really listen to our resources and implement. I mean, I almost think every mom leaving a hospital should have a PT or an OT check in with her and be sure she's got supports. And you know, I'm not pointing fingers, but the neurology community, the anesthesiologists have really minimized us, and there's been wonderful care there, but to really have them, I mean, we're doing this to help patients and help the medical community and help moms and increase outcomes for moms and babies and maternal mental health. And that's about improving our communities. And so that door has opened. Every new add to our group is tough, but I'm a very forward-looking person. And I know, like I said, every mom that we reach, every mom that has a successful second baby and comes out feeling good emotionally and healthy, because as you both know, the physical as well as emotional impact can be lifetime. So this isn't little, this is big, and a recognition of that. So, you know, it's a step at a time. It's a step at a time.
Well, ladies, how can people contact you? So if there are women watching this that really, you know, need your help right now, where can they go to get that support?
If you go to our website, which is www.nervedamagefromchildbirth.com, it will direct you to prevention resources, what to do if you're injured, We're writing a page on maternal mental health right now. It'll direct you to our Facebook support group. It'll direct you to our MICA advocacy that we're in the middle of our month right now, and have had about, 8,000 views of our posts, which is extraordinary. And then we have an advocacy partner called Unhindered Steps, and it will link you to their resources. Unhindered Steps was created by a mom who had nerve injury, and her son is now planning to go to school and become a neurosurgeon. And they've created a brochure that's designed for the medical community to give to your doctors. And all of our resources on the website are printable, easy to read for any of the moms, and easy to share. So.
Okay, that's great. Well, ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I mean, I could talk to you for hours on this subject matter and compare notes. But you're doing such fantastic work, and I know that, since I found your Facebook group, that it's certainly comforted me and given me hope. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. This is just
thank you so much.
Getting exposed, so that's good.
No problem at all. I'd love to have you back on the show in the future, and we can talk some more.
Sure, thank you so much.
Thanks, Claire. Thank
you. All the best, ladies.
Thanks, Paula.